Hello garden friends. I'm here in what we call the addition of our house in part of my houseplant jungle. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking to you about sowing my onions and peppers, as well as a little bit of winter sowing, and then give you a quick tour of my houseplant jungle. It's late February here in central New Hampshire, and there just really isn't anything going on outside. We're still knee-deep in snow, and there's a little bit more predicted. There have been signs of warming. We had a little warm spell the last couple of days where it's been up over 40 degrees, which feels positively tropical compared to what we've had the previous month. And my road has started to thaw a little bit, and my pal Cheeto just showed up here. Say hi, Cheeto. Cheeto. She's gonna claw my face off. Anyway, so our road has started to thaw a little bit. That will obviously end in a couple of days when we have the next cold wave come through. But the daylight is getting longer, and it's starting to feel like things are changing. So I'm busy getting ready for seed starting. Got some seeds started already, and organizing things, trying to get ready so that when the ground eventually does become workable and things warm up enough that I can actually put stuff out in the greenhouse, I can be ready. So let me get started with where I am right now with my seed starting. Here on my grow light stand, on the first level, I have onions. Lots and lots of onions that are growing really, really well. I sowed these back on February 9th, according to the tag, February 9th. So it's been a couple of weeks, and they've sprouted really, really well. I have red and yellow storage onions, and those are traditionally the onions that I grow. I use them fresh, but obviously I grow the storage onions so that in the dead of winter, like right now, we can have onions to eat. And then I also have a bunch of shallots. These are shallots. And then right on the end here, I decided to sow a couple of rows of an onion called red long Dotropia. This one right here, red long of Tropea. This actually is a really good example of what I was talking about in my seed ordering video about storing seeds and being able to use seeds from year to year. These seeds are 2022, so they are coming up on 3 years old. And you can see already the significant difference in germination rate between this year's onion seed and 3-year-old onion seed. Now I planted 3 seeds per cell in these 128 trays of all the other new fresh seed onions, and then did the same thing here. 3 seeds. Actually, I may have put more. Maybe I put 4 or 5, just because I knew we weren't going to get great germination. So at least as many as in the other onion cells. And I'm lucky if I got 1 per cell. Some didn't germinate at all. They've been taking a really long time to get up to the same height. You can see they're even less, there's less height to them than the new seed ones. So onions are definitely not one of those seeds that you want to store for a long period of time, but I have a lot of them. It was a variety that I grew for market for a year, and they really didn't sell, so I had a lot of seed left over. I thought I'd throw some in and see what happens, but as you can see, probably not going to get too many out of these this year. So anyway, so that's what I've done so far under the grow lights. I do have some microgreens going. I've been sowing microgreens every week and have at least 1 or 2 of these little trays going at any given time. And they've been wonderful. I highly recommend growing microgreens inside if you have a little grow light or even a bright windowsill. This has been great, having fresh greens to eat every day pretty much. We've been putting them on sandwiches and salads. It's been great. Now the next thing I'm going to sow are bell peppers. I love bell peppers, particularly red bell peppers, and I usually sow a crop of them every year. I didn't grow them for market, and my cat Cheeto is trying to get into the shot. Anyway, I didn't grow them for market because it wasn't a crop that I could turn over quickly or make a lot of money off of growing, in my space. And so I generally just grew a few plants for me to eat. My preferred variety of red bell pepper is this one, King of the North. This year I got it from Sowing, and I've always had pretty good success with this. The key to this, though, is starting them early. Here in New Hampshire, our growing season is short, relatively short, and our summers, although we can get hot summers, we can get weeks of heat and humidity, generally they're not terribly hot compared to, say, the mid-Atlantic or the South. So peppers can struggle to ripen in time before the frosts come. I start them mid-late February. I'm a little behind. I usually like to start these by now. But yeah, so I'll start these now, and I'm actually going to pot them up in, let me show you. I'm potting my peppers up in what I call 48 tray, which is it's a 10-20 tray with these little 4-pack inserts. And if you fill up the whole tray of these 4-pack inserts, you have 48 cells. So I'm going to sow my peppers into this tray of 48 and grow them under these grow lights for a few weeks at least. Just a quick note about seed starting mix that I use. This is my preferred brand. There are a number of perfectly fine seed starting mixes out there. I just really love the Coast of Maine, and it seems to do really well providing some nutrition to the seeds once they've germinated, so I don't have to pot them up quite as quickly as I've had to with other seed starting mixes. So Coast of Maine organic seed starter. I've also used Vermont compost seed starting mix. That's also a good one, and relatively local to New England. So either one of them I think would be fine for seed starting. But this is what I use, what I've used probably for the last 6 years or so as my seed starting mix. In addition to these King of the North peppers, I was also gifted a packet of seeds, lemon drop chili peppers. Now, I'm generally not a chili pepper kind of person, but these are not terribly hot, and they were given to me by a dear friend. So as part of a gift, long story, but I'm gonna grow these and see what happens. I think they're beautiful. They're bright yellow. I think that's gonna look really cool in the garden. But anyway, I told her I would grow these, and so I'm gonna sow these as well today. Sowing these peppers couldn't be easier. I'm going to be sowing these King of the North seeds, and all I do is I take 2 seeds and per cell and put them on top of the soil like this. Pretty simple. I spread them out a little bit. And I do 2 seeds to ensure that I most likely will get at least 1 plant per cell. If I get 2 plants per cell, and both of them are pretty healthy, I'm going to be repotting these or potting these up in a few weeks anyway. So as long as both plants look healthy, I will probably pot both of them up. I'll just split them up when I go to pot them up and give them each their own pot and get twice as many plants that I can share with my neighbors. So yeah, I'm just going to go through here and do this. Once I've got all this sown, seeds placed on top of the cells, I'm just going to give them a little push inside into the soil. These only need to go down about 1/4 inch. You don't want to bury them too deep, like that. And then I just gently cover with the rest of the soil, like that. Just make sure that they are down a little bit, have good soil contact. Get rid of the stick. And then cover them gently. Another stick. Cover them gently with the soil. And that's that. I'll go through and put the rest of the seeds out. So I've finished sowing all the pepper seeds that I want to plant. I sowed, as you can see over here, I sowed 3 of these little 4-packs with the lemon chili pepper seeds, and then the rest of the tray are the King of the North peppers. And I'm just only going to put one tag there, because then I know in my head anyway, that the rest of this tray is King of the North peppers, with the exception of the 3-pack, the 3 4-packs that are labeled lemon. It's very, very important that you label your seeds. I've had this happen with tomatoes. It was a nightmare. But make sure you label your seeds, especially if you are growing multiple varieties of the same plant, the same type of crop, peppers or tomatoes, because generally once they come up, you're not going to be able to distinguish them from the other. So anyway, so all of these pepper seeds are pushed in and covered over. I'm going to give these guys a water and then lower the grow light down over the tray and hope that they sprout. And probably, they take a while to sprout, probably like 10 days or so, we should see some pepper sprouts. So those are my peppers planted. I will leave these in the house under the grow lights, probably the longest of all the plants that I start from seed. They are very, very cold sensitive, like tomatoes. They will just stop growing if they get cold. So these will stay under the grow lights probably until nights are less Arctic than they are now. I do have a heater in my greenhouse, but I'm definitely not going to put these out until probably, I want to say April will probably be a safer month than March, mainly because we can have some really, really cold nights, and the heater's going to struggle to keep the greenhouse above 50. And if it fails in the middle of the night, I may not lose my greens or my onions because they can take a little bit of cold, but these will definitely be affected. So we'll keep them right here, nice and toasty, under the grow lights in the house. So that's what I'm growing under my grow lights inside. I'm going to take you for a quick jaunt out into the garage and just show you the couple of trays that I've started winter sowing some flowers. So I'm out here in my garage behind the wood pile, and I've got a couple of trays here of, these are 48s, just like the peppers, and I've got a whole bunch of different flowers started here. I've got some ironweed and some Kiss Me Over the Garden Gate, rose campion, brunnera, it's all kinds of stuff. I even have some seeds from a linden tree that I want to try to grow. And I don't know if they need to be cold stratified, but I figure it can't hurt, right? Some hollyhocks, eryngium, can't wait. And then Verbena bonariensis, which is probably my all-time favorite annual to grow. And you'll see it featured heavily in my herb and my perennial gardens this year. Now I sowed these trays probably about 3 weeks ago, and they will stay out here until spring and until they germinate. I'll come out periodically and check on them and make sure there's still some moisture in the soil. There is plastic wrap over the top of them just to keep the soil from drying out so quickly because they are fairly small cells. But basically they're just going to stay out here until I see some life. Now, I'm not a winter sowing expert. There are a million videos out there on winter sowing and different techniques you can try. I'm just doing this as one of my winter sowing options. Let me show you what else I do for seeds that need cold stratification in order to germinate. So I'm back inside, and these are my produce fridges that I used to use for market gardening. And this is my high-tech seed stratification method. I stick them in the freezer. So here they are. They're going to sit here for a few more weeks, and then yeah, I'll sow them probably around April and see what happens. Okay, so that's seed starting. Let's take you on a tour of my houseplant collection. It's not terribly extensive, but this is what I do to keep myself occupied and my hands in the dirt in the wintertime here when, oh, Cheeto's back. Hey, Cheeto. In the wintertime when I can't be outside planting. In this corner of the addition are plants that don't want to be directly in front of a window. They're pulled back a little bit, but they still get pretty bright light. I have 3 different Christmas/Thanksgiving cactuses that I inherited from various people, and they do bloom. They finished blooming a while ago. And then this is a begonia that I bought last year as part of a pot, to fill a pot, and it survived the first frost. And so I brought it inside and repotted it, and it seems to be doing really well. It's got a bunch of leaves, new leaves. It does need a good prune, and I may take some cuttings from here to see if I can propagate it. Now this big plant here, I'm not even gonna try to pronounce the name. I will put it down below on the screen. It's struggling, and I don't know why. I'm trying different things. I keep losing leaves, but it looks sort of like bamboo with big leaves, and I really love it. So I'm hoping I can keep it going because it's beautiful and it's tall, so it fills up a lot of space. Above it, I have a variegated ivy that I trained around a coat hanger. It's literally a coat hanger stuck in the pot and shaped into a round circle, and then the ivy is trained around that. And then next to it is a philodendron, again, an inherited plant that actually my husband brought home from his office. It was struggling and in desperate need of a repot. So I gave it a huge haircut, repotted it, rooted some of the cuttings and stuffed them in the pot, and it is just doing fabulous now. Stratification that I started from a little sprig, and it's yellowing a bit, so I have to do a little investigation there. And then a mother-in-law's tongue or snake plant that I've had this thing for probably 15 years, and it's like 4.5 feet tall now in the pot. So that is a long-time residence of our home. This little fan here is not just for decoration, and I didn't just forget that it was here in the shot. It actually serves a purpose. When I'm not filming right in front of it, I actually have it running and oscillating to keep the air moving around all of these new seedlings. It's important to keep air moving around new seedlings to prevent diseases and mold, mildew, that sort of thing. So normally this is running all the time during the day and keeping the air moving and trying to keep my seeds healthy. Up above along the shelf for the chimney here, I have a couple of jars of cuttings. The one on the left is a philodendron that is in the other room, and then some cuttings of the variegated ivy that I just showed you, and one piece of the philodendron down here that fell off. And of course I can't throw anything away plant related, so I stuck it in the water, and that will eventually go back in the main pot as a new shoot. Panning around from this main planting area, I have 2 Boston ferns that came from a big Boston fern that that outgrew its pot, and I split it up and repotted it into 4, I think, different pots, gave a couple away, and these 2 I still have. And they'll go outside in spring and get some fresh air and some natural rain on the shady side of the house. And hopefully they'll grow bigger. I also have a huge grape ivy. I'll put the actual variety name or Latin name down below because I don't remember it at the moment. But this was given to me as a scraggly little pot of ivy, and I repotted it and have been nurturing it for the last probably 5 years. and it's pretty big. And I keep taking cuttings from this and giving them away, so lots of my neighbors have cuttings from this. Below that is a fairly large monstera that's doing pretty well, although some of these leaves have cat fang marks. My cat likes to chew on them, so I've had to battle her to stop doing that. Speaking of, and then swinging around above on another beam, I have this beautiful, I believe it's a Thanksgiving cactus that just keeps blooming. It will not stop blooming. It's been blooming since like the third week of November, and it'll pause for a little bit and then more buds will come out, and they are just gorgeous. If I swing around back toward the grow light, on this little bookshelf here, I've got this tray, and this is sort of an assortment of new plants, cuttings, and plants that really want to be in direct sunlight or bright light. This is a beautiful pencil jade that I've had for a number of years, and it actually needs a little bit of a cleanup and a trim, but I'll prune this back a little bit and take all the cuttings and start new plants. I'm never going to pronounce this right. Calancho, given to me by a friend last year, still blooming, and that also needs a trim back. I've got a couple of scented geraniums that I'm really struggling with, and I don't know why. And then regular jade. This is there are a number of names for this. It's a peperomia, but it's called like Chinese money plant or pass-along plant. And as you can see, this poor one has cat teeth marks. It was in the living room on a different spot where my cat could access it, and so she's been chewing on it. But in here, if you look, there are little baby plants, hence its name, pass-along plant, because I'm going to take this out of its pot and separate these little baby ones and pot those up and give them away. In front of it, I've got cuttings from the Stratification that I showed you earlier that I've potted up into a whole new plant. I've also got some more cuttings from plants that are in the living room that I'll show you in a second. This is a Maranta, some cat grass that I'm growing. And then 2 pots of the philodendron that was up on the top of the the chimney shelf that came from the living room. I'll show you that in just a minute. Swing back over here. This plant, swing around so you get better light. This is a Rapsalis, and I'll put the variety name down below it. This plant is very special to me. I'm going to give a shout out to my friend Kim. This came from my friend Kim, and her plant came from her mom. And Kim gave me a cutting of this, I want to say, well over 20 years ago. It's been a long time. And it's now just like this big, fluffy mop of succulent sprouts. And it actually just finished flowering. These are the last few flowers. But every year, February-ish, January, February-ish, it flowers. Although it went a couple of years without flowering. So this year was actually a surprise. I thought it was done flowering forever. And a month or 2 ago, all of a sudden it was covered in these yellow blooms. So this right here, if the house catches on fire, heaven forbid, this plant is coming with me. Down below, I have a rosemary that sat in its little nursery pot all summer long last year, neglected. And I felt bad for it. I brought it back in October after we'd already had a frost and repotted it. And it is just like going crazy. It actually bloomed not too long ago. You can kind of see some of the flowers left on there. But yeah, I'm really excited this made it. So that was a quick tour of all the plants in the addition. I'm going to take you into the main part of the house and show you what I've got tucked away there. So I'm in our living room, and here tucked in a corner by the staircase, I've got an anthurium, which always seems to be in bloom. Right now it's only got one bloom, but typically there are usually 2 or 3, and it seems to bloom all year long. I don't know what I'm doing to make it do that. It just seems to be happy here. Down below it, I've got a beautiful young philodendron. It's called Imperial Red, and the leaves are just the most beautiful burgundy color when they're brand new. And then they sort of fade a little bit to green as they get older. But the stems are just stunning. Unfortunately, this was down below, a little bit lower, and my cat Cheeto was chewing on it. So it's moved up now to where they can't get to it. This one is a calathea and definitely needs a little trimming here. But it has these beautiful variegated leaves, and on some of them, especially the newer ones, if it's bright enough, you'll see a little tinge of pink on the leaves, which is just really gorgeous. And then down below that, I cannot remember the name of this plant. I will find out and put it down below. It looks like an elephant's ear, but it's struggling. Poor thing. Moving toward the front of the house, these are southern-facing windows, so they're very bright. I have a whole bunch of plants here who enjoy being sort of adjacent to these. This one is a philodendron, another philodendron. This variety is called Brazil, and what's unique about it, these are the cuttings that I had in the other room. The young leaves and stems have this beautiful pink coloring to it. It sort of fades as it gets older, but when they're really young, they're gorgeous. Now I have this hanging. What I'd like to do is take those cuttings that I have in the other room, and instead of putting them in a hanging basket, I'm going to put them in a big pot and put that on the floor and then grow it vertically with the hopes that I can get these leaves to be much bigger and maybe display this variegation a little more brightly than they are now hanging. Next to it on this little table, I've got a peperomia. I will try to look up the variety. I don't know it offhand. Desperately in need of a repotting, but this thing just grows and grows and grows, and I do nothing. I just let it sit here in the window, water and rotate it every once in a while, and it's gorgeous. Next to it is another little peperomia. Again, don't know the variety, but that one's struggling. It's funny how this one is doing really well. This one, not so much. Next to it is a maranta, and I also have cuttings of this next door in the addition, but look at those leaves. They are just amazing. This here is a Chinese evergreen. Again, I'll look up the variety name, but I've had this thing at least 20 years. This thing, maybe more. Thing has moved probably 3 or 4 times, and just keeps growing and growing. Every once in a while, I knock it out of the pot and repot it with some fresh soil, but it just thrives on neglect. I do nothing to it other than water it once in a while, and it sits here in the shadow between the 2 windows and does great. Over on this side of this window, I have another big ivy in a hanging pot, and this needs to be trimmed. And when I trim it, of course, I will root all these cuttings and pot them up and give them away to somebody. It's gorgeous. And then below that, I have another cactus. This is, I think this is a Christmas cactus. I can never tell them apart. And it just finished up around another round of bloom. And I was looking at this morning and realized it's got more blooms coming. So this thing is just not going to stop blooming. Very weird, but beautiful. Look at that. So the final houseplant on our houseplant tour is this old spider plant that I've had for a number of years. It sits in the corner of our kitchen. Our kitchen faces west and north, and so it gets a little bit of afternoon sun, but mainly it's just sort of in this bright, diffuse light most of the day, and it seems to like it. Well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed a little glimpse into my seed starting this early in the season, as well as the houseplant tour. There will be lots more seed sowing, especially once I get the greenhouse open. I'll show you all that once I can get to the greenhouse. It's actually buried with a foot of snow all around it, so I can't open it right now without excavating the snow out from the door. But soon enough, I will be getting in there and getting that ready for seed starts, hopefully soon in the next couple of weeks. And I'll show you all that. Until then, thank you for watching. I appreciate that you're here, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care. Bye.